Hey, what's up, guys? So, this is going to be the Othello team match between Team Brazil and Team Singapore. So, as usual, you will have six versus six players, six players on each side, and I believe Brazil is actually a relatively new team, but I've heard many good things about Brazil and also Brazilian Othello. So, definitely looking forward to a very good match here. As usual, I'll be featuring the six games that I'll be playing and giving some live commentary as I play. And of course, it's going to be the usual six rounds, so each player on each side will get to play everyone. Just that the colors will be alternating for each round. And of course, the time control will be 7 minutes on each side. And hopefully, you enjoy this video. Okay, hey guys, this is gonna be round one of the team match between Brazil and Singapore. So round one against Carl Bucks 2003. I don't really know too much about the Brazilian team, but I've heard good things about them. So just starting off with a conservative perpendicular opening, perhaps. Seems to be experiencing a little bit of lagginess, so I'll just cross back into the center and just play the usual Rose Bill. So opponent has played the Rose Bill, probably trending towards Tiger. So usually can probably start thinking about whether to vary it or not. For now, I guess I wouldn't vary it and just go with the usual towards Rose Bill. So he has played the Tiger Many Blacks. So perhaps we can go with the Taminori variation, or we could go for the Central Rose Bill variation. Okay, I guess I'll play the Taminori variation. So I think this is fairly common. You should know it. Let's go for that usual cross back. So let's cut into the center over here. So this is just basically the Taminori typical book sequence. And we'll hit down over here to capture the edge, flipping two disc. Over here, just maintaining this somewhat centralized shape. So I think this is still within the book sequence. Okay, so he's also played just a standard book sequence, just a chip to the top. So play this. So I think the usual book sequence, probably white may go for this move to f4, or perhaps over here to e3, and of course the Japanese favorite would be d7. And of course I myself have been exploring that sequence, so I'll just play it for a little bit of probably just trying to be conservative here. Okay, so he's played somewhat of a different variation, so this is probably beginning to move a little bit out of book. So we can start to probably try to do a bit of a fundamental analysis and just try to use some basic concepts to derive moves, perhaps. So if I think of probably instinctively a good move for myself would be to just jump back and cut into the center, the two discs that he just flipped, and just occupy back into the center. Probably no major issues with this move. Another way to think about it is to think of where black may go next. So you might go here, which probably opens up a good move for me here. So that's not a huge problem, perhaps. And of course, if he goes here in the future, this would effectively be preventing it. So I'll just go ahead and perhaps just go for b6. Just maintain this center shape, somewhat giving up this top right disc away. So right now the game plan is essentially just trying to look for moves, perhaps to the bottom right and also to the top left when he makes any move there. So it's kind of like just trying to centralize between this direction. Okay, so he's initiated a touch to the edge, which is a key disc over here to b5 that creates excess. I'll just defend it perhaps and just grab the edge to not lose tempo as well. So just try to force him to make more moves on the outside. Okay, so when he plays this sequence to make me form up that edge, he's essentially feeding an unbalanced edge to the left. So if I were to play a2 right now, he would probably just pop a disc over here to b7 and just create that shape so that he can attack that unbalanced edge, which would then result in me losing a tempo perhaps and just having to find somewhere else to play. So perhaps responding to this may not be as good. Even though I do gain an edge tempo, he plays this, I lose the tempo again and I have to play a move elsewhere. And right now if I play a move elsewhere, immediately he grabs the unbalanced edge, which is attackable for me in the future. So I think right now, of course, he grabbing the unbalanced edge, he also creates one more access to this move. So, but I think right now it might be more wise to actually just go for perhaps f6, so I don't really lose a tempo perhaps, because if I went there I would still lose a tempo as well. So let's try perhaps a more defensive and less risky f6 and see how that goes. So usually if I don't take the edge, the opponent is probably expected to take the edge to grab that tempo. But right now he's hesitating, so perhaps his plan was to originally hope that I would actually grab the unbalanced edge. So if he is indeed hesitating, he's probably looking at other moves where he can play and just avoid grabbing the unbalanced edge and still trying to force feed that unbalanced edge to me so that plan still goes through for him to actually go for that corner exchange and to wedge for that attack on the unbalanced edge. So one possible move is, yeah, he would probably consider this, or I was about to say d8 actually. So he'll control this mini diagonal. So right now it's obvious that he doesn't really want to, he wants to wait for me to actually grab the unbalanced edge instead of him grabbing it. So over here he has another nice move, and if I were to not want to grab that unbalanced edge, I would then think about perhaps the next move he might play is over here to to g5, and I'd probably consider poisoning it by playing g3 just to break that shape. Or I could just ignore that and just go for the bottom and still perhaps make him want to play into the unbalanced edge. Let's try c8. So, and apply perhaps a little bit of pressure and see how it plays. So just probably aware that I'm actually short of time right now. So usually when you're short of time, it's probably a good practice to use your opponent's thinking time to actually anticipate where to play. So again, I'm thinking he might play and grab the unbalanced edge if tempo allows, but so far, okay, so he's done it. And of course his next move might be to play to this square over here at e2. Since he's actually captured the unbalanced edge, perhaps I just want to skirt on the side and just wait for moves to happen. So I'll just grab an edge move to the right and just try to inch inwards from the edge and just try to keep to my boundary to the right. Okay, so he's played down into the center, so this is a good move. And of course, usually when the opponent approaches the edge this way, you could probably choose to either just take a chip off and retain this move for yourself, which he most likely would actually respond over here to f8. So another way is to just defend it by just flipping both discs and just seal off the edge. So it really depends on what you want to do. I don't really like the fact that he might have this move, so I'll just go ahead to seal off the edge and just wait for the shape to play out. If he does jump into the center, which is over here with one square gap, which is a usual maneuver to just sort of result in a semi-stalemate and just try to capture the edge position, he would probably flip this and make this into a solid wall edge. So that could be a potential weakness because I could jump into the x square and try to gain tempo. Now he's jumped in for the edge. I'll just defend the edge and keep to my boundary just by just sort of absorbing the disc to my boundary just by taking an edge play move. Okay, so same thing over here. So right now perhaps he might jump in here and poison this move. So I wouldn't really want to grab the edge because I would flip essentially 3 discs after black takes this 2 disc. So if black were to jump in here, I would probably feed the unbalanced edge instead or play somewhere to the top. So let's see what happens. Of course, black does retain that option to actually play to e2 perhaps. So right now he's played a nice 1 square gap, and of course over here I could probably choose to block his good move here, which would probably result in him playing here, or I could just edge inwards. So let's take the conservative approach and just keep on maintaining the centralized shape to the top right. So this move somewhat provide that connection between these two group of discs. And then perhaps over here I could just jump in over here, which is a quiet move against this entire diagonal line, and also controlling this line. And of course if he jumps in over here, I can potentially grab this move while controlling this mini diagonal and grab consecutive tempo over here. So let's try that. Bearing in mind that the network does seem a little bit laggy, I might want to speed up my moves a little bit. Okay, so he's approached the edge. So usually the difference between these two is you either leave a gap or you threaten immediately. So for me, I want to leave a gap because I think I don't really want to go into a position whereby he goes into the X square and I have a difficulty just letting him have one more pocket to slot in perhaps. So let's just go for the easy regroup move to the top for now and just wait for him to play out the shape. So now both players are a little short of time. I think it's going to be a little bit tough in the end game perhaps. So now he's created a 1 square gap. I'll just grab F1 and create this pocket of space that he can't really access to. And now he's given up the corner, so I'll just grab the corner. And he probably goes in for parity, yes. And then I'll just feed off this unbalanced edge for black, perhaps, just to lengthen this edge and also to create some opportunities. So bearing in mind this 1, 2, 3, 4 squares are somewhat dispersed in that shape to the left, but it's still like an even square zone for parity perhaps. So I'll just jump in over here to the left and just lengthen that stable edge. And if he does go for a diagonal control, I'm just aware of the fact that I still have this move perhaps to h6 to just cut back for this to access the corner again. So right now I'll just grab the corner since he's given that to me. Okay, over here I'll just play one move over here so that perhaps he plays here and this becomes a parity region and I could just seal off the game with parity. Okay, so I'll just grab this move and then yeah, no matter where he plays, it's probably a parity win for me. Okay, good game, Karl Barks. Thank you very much. So that's the end of round 1 for me. So this is round 2 of the Team Brazil and Team Singapore match. Right now I'm playing black. Opponent has played diagonal. So typically for diagonal, you have quite a few options for black. Basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So out of these 9 main branches, I'm actually looking at just playing a little bit of the snake opening. So I'll go ahead to play G6, the snake opening. I think this should be the license opening perhaps. So I'll just regroup my disc to the right for now. Okay, so over here, he's also regrouped his disc. The typical response is to just jump in, which is centralizing. For me right now, I like to play perhaps this sequence just to try it out at F3, just keeping to the right for now. And then after opponent has established that, I'll just jump in to grab this disc so that I can cut back to control this mini diagonal across for centralization. So of course he's played this just to retain some disc, so in case I were to play to F7, he can just cut back. So F7 and then he cuts back and then I'll perhaps go down to e8. So let's go with that sequence. So typically in Othello, what you want to do is perhaps to have at least a 2-move thinking ahead, at least so when you think of one move and your opponent's potential response, and of course your next move where you want to play, and instead of just being caught off guard by your opponent's response, perhaps. So after that black white black exchange, I'm controlling this mini diagonal over here. Hopefully that's effective. So over here, white has played a nice move to the right and established this, which is now threatening to go for this move, perhaps. So right now I want to think of perhaps poisoning it, since I think preventing it is just a temporary measure. Black white, and he just gets that this that provides that excess. So prevention probably wouldn't work. Poisoning it might be worth looking at, but if I were to play this, he might play this particular move at f8 and controlling this mini diagonal, perhaps. So not too sure if that's what I want to do at the moment. I think for now this is a strong roll, so I could also consider playing to c3, anticipating some moves to the top. So if c3 and d3, I can go into c4 perhaps. c3 and c4, perhaps I could then jump in over here or here. I think for now I probably want to deal with the lower shape first. So another Japanese thinking way of thinking is that I think the center 16 boxes are usually quite important when it comes to playing opening or the early mid game. You might have to occupy those spots first as opposed to just grabbing the edges, because the center discs are actually relatively easier to be removed. So I think just weighing between playing the bottom and the top, perhaps I could just try to go ahead with the Japanese philosophy and just go for the top first in terms of tempo. I'm kind of ignoring the tempo and perhaps the competitive squares to the bottom. So instead of sort of just trying to resolve the situation to the bottom and the right, I'm just trying to create another competitive areas. So let's see how that goes. Probably expecting him to just do a simple straight cut across and just maintain that center shape, which should probably be quite strong actually. So hopefully I can exchange for some moves to the top. So yep, he's done that and just cut into the center. That's probably quite a good move. Keeping in mind that white-black is a quiet move, and I can perhaps get consecutive moves to the left. I'll just regroup to the center. Over here to e3. Just trying to favor those two discs that I just placed that are in the center 16 perhaps. And hopefully that works out well. If he plays to this move over here, I could probably play a quiet move in response. If he plays this, I would just get an easy c4. So probably he might want to go to f2 perhaps and just develop that edge to the right. So now looking back, it almost seems like c3 was a mistake. Now he's having a very strong edge to the right, and I would definitely have to figure out a way to actually break that shape. So if I were to play here, and he would just take a chip to the right edge, and that would still be pretty strong for him. But of course, in exchange, I can play one more move to the top and just try to bring him up to the top. Let's go ahead with that and just try and see whether that works. So probably anticipating him to just defend the edge, and I'll grab the top and then try to force him to the left and create some moves for me, given that this hasn't changed of white and black being a quiet move. Suddenly realized that I'm actually quite short of time with 3 minutes left. Okay, so he's played a little bit of an unconventional edge play. So instead of just resolving the right, he's actually creating this area that needs to be resolved as well, which can be confusing for certain blitz situations for sure. So that is also a strategy. If I take d8, and feed him the balance edge, I would then probably jump in over here to c7, and he will grab this edge. So he does have a strong edge over here and to the right, so it would suddenly become a little scary perhaps. And of course, the first option, another option would be to just simply grab the edge. Let's try to grab the edge perhaps, just to be a little bit more defensive, because if you surrender two edges that are diagonally across each other, it tends to be a little risky in terms of your opponent sort of like shaving this off in a diagonal direction, and then you realize you lose pretty much all the access to everywhere else, and you are forced to this square perhaps. So this is a little bit more defensive on my part. So again, he hasn't really jumped in over here because he knows that I cannot play this, so that's quite a good move perhaps. So I'll go ahead with this move perhaps and just get this line control. Of course, he can still jump in, but if he feeds me this edge, I would get a balanceable edge to the top. Let's try this. I think I'm controlling this mini diagonal, and at the same time I'm controlling this line. It might be favorable for me, but white might jump in over here, and I'll probably respond with just a cross back, so white black perhaps. So probably a good move for him might be to actually play d2 because he gets a excess perhaps. Okay, so he's played that, and I'll now just play that cross back, even though I would wish that I have some this over here to get a quiet move to the bottom, but I don't, so probably just have to deal with reality. And over here, could probably go with this move for now. So just waiting for him to feed this. I think he probably wants to develop the top a little bit more so that when he feeds, he can then go for that attack of the unbalanced edge, which is quite a good strategy, I guess. So another way to think about is that I should probably play it to the bottom and try to threaten the excess over here, perhaps. Okay, let's just jump in for now. He's probably going to throw this, yep. So he's going to throw this unbalanced edge feed. And if I were to take it black-white, I would then have to start thinking where else to play. If I play black somewhere else first and he takes it, I would then be able to attack the unbalanced edge, perhaps. Or I could just play to the top. Let me play to the top first, perhaps, because he hasn't played the X square yet, so it wouldn't poison this move. If I were to play this and allow him to jump into the X square, I wouldn't be able to play this in the future. So I'm short of time again. It's getting a little tight over here with 49 seconds. But usually it's probably quite a good idea to invest some time just to be sure in your opening and mid game and just set up for the end game. Usually if you invest quite a good quality time into your mid game and opening, you would then be able to play it easier or have it easier perhaps in the end game. Let's go for this easy quiet move, flipping four discs two different directions, but all of the discs are somewhat nestled with the existing discs. I don't really create many new moves for my opponent. I'm somewhat expecting him to play into g2, which is a diagonal control, and make it quite difficult for me to continue perhaps. And of course, in response, I would probably have to go into the other X square, so an X square compensates for another. Okay, so he didn't really play that move. So one way is I could just feed this, and if he takes it, this entire corner to the right becomes very valuable for me, and I could then value it very high, and I could just force this corner and just try to gain tempo. So he's done it. So I feel very comfortable about the top right. I'm just going to go ahead with that X square, feed off the corner. If he takes it, I'll just jump in. If he doesn't take it, I would actually have the diagonal control over here. So it's somewhat of a tempo exchange, if you will. So right now I'll just go for the diagonal control, and so this is more of a C square control. So right now is this control of the diagonal, and at the same time he's forced to give me that corner. So ultimately he still has to trade off, and he will grab that corner to the bottom, and I would still secure this and of course right now I just want to extend my influence, so I'll just grab this, make him pass a turn, just grab the clean sweep, a little loud but I think it's still alright, so we'll just utilize the top and the right edges to my advantage and just go for a simple parity win now that I have a pass of a turn. So perhaps just counting this out, probably good for this. Okay, that was a close shave. I actually ended the game with 0 seconds. Okay, so thank you very much, Stepman, and good game. I think the mid game was actually pretty tight over there. I was quite lucky to end off the game in time. Okay, so we're gonna be going ahead with round 3 of Team Brazil versus Team Singapore. So now playing white, I'll play a diagonal opening this time. So let's see how that goes. So the typical diagonal opening is that you actually just form up that cross shape, and then over here, black has the option to vary it, and of course black has selected the cow variation. So over here, the typical variation is to either go the Tanida or the chimney opening. I think I'm gonna go ahead with the Tanida. So let's cross over and play the sailboat opening perhaps, or the swift boat opening, or also known as the Tanida opening. So this is the typical shape. So this almost looks like a boat with the sail on top. So let's see which variation to play perhaps. So I'll go ahead with that cross back into the center perhaps, or I could just take this move and just regroup to the bottom, or I could just take a chip back and pull it back. Just thinking which sequence would actually be the best perhaps. So sometimes during a game, if you realize you probably can't visualize a particular sequence, it's probably not a good idea to actually just go ahead and play that move. If you don't feel comfortable with it, and you could just make some adjustments to your usual book and just try to go off from there. So I think for me, I'm actually just going to go ahead with the center cut, flipping one direction, just regroup into the center. So the typical sequence would then follow with black just regrouping to the top, just taking these to this, just maintaining that center shape. And alternative would be probably D7 or E7 to the bottom. So let's see where that goes. So the opponent has elected to just make a diagonal cut across. This opens up these two moves for me to consider perhaps. So I'll go ahead. Difference between these two is that this square is perhaps in the center 16 and more towards the center of the shape. But if I were to play this and he takes this move and controls this mini diagonal between C5 and D6, I would then have a little issue with centralizing perhaps, or just white, black, and white perhaps. So that is still feasible. White, black perhaps, and white. So that is my thinking right now. If I just go white here, it would just simply be too easy for black to just cut in. So either way, I would have to consider either of these two moves. So definitely the question is which one? I think I'll go ahead with the one which is nearer to the center of the board. And just see how my opponent... Okay, so my opponent has played this, creating this to attempt to go for this move, and at the same time controlling this mini diagonal. I'll just go ahead and defend that. And it's probably a nice move to actually place in the center of the board, perhaps. So let's see where black plays. Probably anticipating either a5 or e7, perhaps. Or alternatively, maybe b4 would be an option. Probably a third choice for me. I think I would probably do a5. And if he does do a5, I'll probably go down to d8 perhaps and just create a disc so that I can cut and just continue to maintain that center shape. Okay, so he's played a4, which is somewhat similar to a5, just that it's probably a more favorable shape, so this is quite a good move. I didn't really think of that, but yeah, I'll probably go off with the same strategy over here, or alternatively, since he's played a diagonal cut, this could be a potential poison move. If white goes here and black takes this, black has to flip 1 and 2 white disc, which typically creates more moves here, potentially. Not too sure whether I want to go down that route though, considering that black still has this particular disc to e3 and threatens e7. So another way would be white, black, white perhaps. Or white, black, white. Let's go ahead with this perhaps, just to be a little bit more conservative. Certainly I don't hope that after the sequence I would have an issue with these two squares actually poisoning each other. So I probably don't want to obstruct myself. Okay, so he's definitely gone into the center. e7, that's an obvious move, I guess. Um, so over here, I would either prevent or I'll just cut into the center or do a poison move. So I think I'll just go for the cut into the center move. I think both of us seem to be taking our own sweet time in the opening and mid game perhaps. So both of us have already used more than half the time, but I don't think we're actually halfway through the moves. Okay, so he's played a nice move to just regroup back and create more moves for himself. I could probably try this just to retain more moves. White, black, white, or just simply white over here may not be too great. White over here probably not too great because if black plays here, this is poison for me. So white, black, white perhaps, or white, black, white. Let's go ahead with this. So usually I don't recommend creating that one square gap unless you have a valid reason. For my case, I think my valid reason is to just try to get tempo. So just to create it's somewhat like a mid-game parody. White, black, white, and then white, black, white. These two are possible sequences. Or white, and if he goes black over here or black over here, I can play here, which poisons this move in the future. So let's go for this move right now, just to cut into the center. Probably anticipating that he might jump in over here and control this mini diagonal, which will be very strong. I would then have to play c2 to just create this white disc back in order to access. Okay, so he hasn't played this. He played to c8 instead, which causes a dilemma for me. I can't really go into e8. So this is a problem that I probably want to address. So I think c2 is probably the same solution for me. Alternatively, I could actually just go down over here. I think for me right now, I actually slightly prefer c2, but expecting c2, d2, and then with this in hand, I would then be able to access h3. Let's go with that and just try c2, and he probably won't feed me the edge to the bottom, and he probably can't play to the right, and the left moves are all poison, so I guess d2 should be the logical choice, and after he set up d2, I would then play h3, which is, and I'm probably not a poison edge. Let's go with h3. And if black were to play this, it's totally fine for me to just play h5 and just grab the edge to the right, so that's fine. If he plays anything to the left, that would unpoison g3 for me to play. So I think this shape looks fine for now. Okay, so he's attacked the edge, we'll grab the edge, and now it's a little bit more about being passive and just waiting for my opponent to play out moves. So over here, he's played one square gap to the edge. Okay, this is a little tight for me, and I'm short of time. Probably go with this poison edge. So he's probably going to grab the edge, and it's actually quite a nice edge for him. Not too sure whether this was a right move, but let's see how that goes. So both players are just down to about 70 seconds. Let's see how this goes. Okay, black has played this. This immediately opens up as a quiet move, but I wouldn't be able to contest for this move because he can jump in immediately. So not too sure if that is what I want to do at the moment. Okay, let's go for this as a combo move. White, black, and then this is poison, but I'll force unpoison it by feeding this. And black goes here, and this becomes unpoisoned because he can't give up the corner. So he's probably going to jump in over here to b4. This is a heavily poisoned move, but because black has this over here, I can force feed white over here, and black has to take that sort of force move, and this entire row becomes black. So I have a nice quiet move to a3. So sometimes some moves do look a bit bad, but if you look maybe a few moves ahead, it suddenly becomes good. So yeah, I guess for this case it is. So right now he's playing to the top. I have to find a way to still survive and look for one more move. Let's just jump into the center just to create this along this diagonal so that I can play this in the future and potentially this if I need. So just creating c4 and e6 over here. So he might just play to f2. So what should I do then? I'll probably play this move, which is no excess for black here, just a mini diagonal control over here, and yeah, he makes that unbalanced edge. So I'll just close off this area to the top as parity, because if black goes here, white goes for the corner, black, white, and I capture parity. So let's grab that parity move. Okay, so I think both players are short of time. It's a bit difficult for him at the moment, because parity still seems to be favorable. I'll just grab the corner and just exchange this. Just want this to the edge just to push it a little further over here. I'll grab the edge because due to parity, I want to secure the discs. Okay, so black, white, and then finally black, white, and black and white. So that's the game. Thank you very much, Kouichi, and that's a good game. Thank you very much, and I hope you enjoyed it. Okay, this is going to be round 4 of the Team Brazil and Team Singapore match. So I'm playing black right now. Just start off with my favorite e6. White has played perpendicular. Perhaps let's try to go for maybe a shaman opening. So white has gone over here. Black will go for this tail end of it. So that's the shaman shape. We'll just jump into the center. Just control the center shape over here. Okay, so right now white has carved out one additional move potentially for himself. I'm not too sure whether I want to jump in, because if I jump in, white would then cross back into the center. Black, white, perhaps black in follow-up, but he would then have a nice move over here. Perhaps I'll just stay back and play to this move, this square first, and if he plays this, I could then keep to my side of the board. Okay, so he's played a nice regroup move. I'll just take this move perhaps just to stay to the bottom of the board. Okay, right now he's played a nice diagonal cut, so he's going for 2 consecutive moves over here potentially. So if I play here, it would be an easy edge move to him. So typically I'll just do a crisscross and control this line, and if he does take this move, I can jump into the center. So he does grab the edge, so that's a good one from him. So let's see, what can I do here? These are poisoned because of this elongated shape that I formed to the left that poisons all the moves to the top. So let's go for this quiet move, which is probably the only one that is quiet, and just flipping to this in one direction. And this somewhat forms a point disc to go for this move, but now that he's sort of walled up that space, the priority is probably to play out to the top first before I go in, since this is somewhat like an exclusive area for me. So right now, probably black here would be good since that's poison to the top. Another way is to just simply jump in for black over here so that I can have some disc along this mini diagonal. So if black white, at least I would still be able to cut out over here. Let's go ahead with maybe the cut in and see how that goes. So he's jumped in, yes, to create this excess and go for this move and this move. So let's probably poison this move and at the same time poisoning this move by playing h3. So this is more like a very direct approach in looking at your opponent's moves. So knowing that your opponent is probably going to play either one of those. Or white could now then change his strategy and just move here. And if white plays this and flips these to this basically unpoisons this move. So sort of unlocking this move. So let's just jump into this move in response. And yep, it's basically a quiet move that has opened up as well. And consecutively I can make tempo into the center. So let's grab this as well. So just collecting these two moves, forming that shape into the center. Okay, so right now white has jumped over to a very forceful edge to the right. I don't really want to grab the edge because it's fairly poisoned. I would just regroup to the top first. And if he does take that unbalanced edge, I could probably just slot in for a quiet move here to h6. And if he does take this move to the top, I would then consider grabbing the edge. Okay, so I'll grab this poison move here. Even though it's poison, I somewhat control this mini diagonal between b5 and e2 momentarily. So I think that is potentially favorable for me. And I'm probably trying to go for consecutive tempo. So if white does grab this, I can jump in, feed that unbalanced edge across. Okay, so he's done that. If I wanted to keep the edge tempo, I would actually adopt a one square gap. But if I didn't really want to keep the tempo, I would actually just simply feed off the unbalanced edge. And maybe black, white, black, perhaps I could feed off the x square. But that may not be necessary. So just thinking this through in terms of the sequence. Do I want to grab the tempo? It's not very clear at the moment, but feeding that unbalanced edge across is safer. Let's go for that unbalanced edge feed. At least if he forms that unbalanced edge to the top, I can still feed to the top left, perhaps. Or I could do this, black, white, grab the corner, and instead of going in, because it's white's only access to this square is this behind this, black this, I could just stretch out to the edge and build up. But black, white, black, white, black, white, black, or white. I would then have to go to the bottom and look for moves there, which is probably not very defensive, perhaps. So I think I'll go ahead with this x square and just feed off the corner to the top left. Just trying to be a little bit more defensive, perhaps. So he's gone on and taken a6. The top right is actually a 5 square zone that I actually want to jump in first for parity. So alternatively, we could probably take this out here. So this remains as an unresolved zone, which is also potentially a problem. Alternatively, I could go black here and try to threaten for this excess. Okay, let's just try for black here and threaten for this excess. Of course, I wouldn't be able to take it because if I take it, this would become a quiet move for white and he can grab this C square and also the corner. So let's see how the opponent responds before deciding what to do here. Okay, he's grabbed the entire edge across. So right now, in fact, the diagonal control does seem very compelling. So let's just grab the diagonal control. There's no way he can attack this corner from the top right, so we're safe, and there's no way he can create that diagonal disc excess. So because of this loud move, perhaps, this becomes a problem for white, and I have that momentary diagonal control. So suddenly it does seem a little bit more favorable towards my side, and he will probably get the corner over here, and I'll grab this, and then this becomes a parity region. Okay, so he didn't grab that. So what I want to do right now is probably to try to go for a swindle. If I did this, this would be a forced swindle, but that's too many discs to actually give up. Black, white, black, that would actually be a swindle. So, or he's basically forced because he can't take any move out here. So that's fine. And over here I have parity, I guess. As long as this row is still occupied by white disc, I can then capture parity. So after this white and black move, parity is lost for white perhaps. So that becomes a fairly easy edge creep for me. So that's quite lucky for me. And I will just grab the edge and grab the corner. Over here, this is a parity region, so it's still fine. We'll just grab the edge move and just pick up the last move wherever he plays. Okay, so thank you and good game. Okay, so this is going to be round 5, the second last round of the Team Brazil versus Team Singapore match. My opponent is Mickey014, who is actually a friend of mine in Brazil, and also my Pokemon supplier in the game of Pokemon Go. So just playing the usual typical opening setup. Okay, so he's played Stephenson, which is usually a very strong opening. You have 3 options, Kong, Kommoth, and no Kong. I prefer Kommoth recently, so let's go with Kommoth. Okay, I'm gonna jump into the center. So this is the usual book sequence for a standard Stephenson, perhaps. So this is Tama Plaza, usually quite hard to play against black for this. So if he does specializes in this opening, it's going to be very tough for me. So typically black would either play the b6 or e3. I don't think the other sequences are usually played that much. Okay, so that is the usual book sequence. We will go ahead with the same book sequence over here, perhaps, or we could actually go for a slight variation to the top. Or another variation would be this move we could explore. So let's go ahead with a variation to g5, just to perhaps move away from the book sequence if possible. Okay, black has jumped in. We want to jump into the center, just regroup those discs for now. Okay, black has played a very nice move to the top, which is a nice quiet move for him. And we will go to the top and just extend. Just maintain that shape, playing group small inside, just flipping one disc. Potentially black would just jump into the center over here, create this disc for this success with continuation to the top 1 and 2 perhaps. So black, black, black is sort of like a nice effective way to just slice up the discs into as many moves as possible. Okay, so black has played to the bottom, which is a little surprising, but let's try to figure this out. If black does go to follow through to either g4 or g6, he would then control this mini diagonal or this mini diagonal. So that is probably something that I don't want to see happening. So I would just try to retain and extend some discs along this diagonal. And this would be a typical good way to actually feed off an unbalanced edge to black, perhaps. Maybe white, black, white, or white, black, white, black, white. Both are ways to actually feed off the diagonal, or alternatively I could just ignore and just play to the top, or I could just play here right now. I think I'll just go on with the conventional approach and just extend some this along this diagonal. Okay, so let's see. Okay, black has extended. So to try to gain consecutive moves, what we want to do is just form up that unbalanced edge attack by playing this, and it's somewhat like a stalemate move, and consecutively I can then make a move to c7, so I gain tempo. So one move here, and black has to play a move elsewhere, and I get to jump in, and black has to play one more move to the outside that potentially could create more moves for me out there. So I would be tempted to play into this move, but if black were to follow, I don't really get to gain advantage of the tempo. So since this shape is still fine for me to respond, I'll actually respond and grab the edge first. And this is somewhat of like an exclusive move for me, so this can wait. So right now, probably just anticipating that he does either of these two moves, g3 or g4. Probably g4 would make more sense. Okay, he's played g3 with potential continuation to g4, perhaps, and I could consider blocking it, or I could just take one move to the edge just to establish this back for the access down to c7. I think white, black, white get one more move here. White, black removes this. I don't have the access over here, so I would actually go for h4 instead to just try to secure that move. Typically, we tend to want to play into the inner parameter instead of the outer one, but for this case, probably the outer one makes more sense to try to retain that access. So let's jump into the center over here, consolidate two white discs. Okay, so he's grabbed this unbalanced edge, which is actually a good move, I believe, to form up that balanceable edge. So what we want to do here is to just let him form up that balanced edge first, and white goes into h3, feed off h5, and jump right back in over here to c7 to continue on potentially to a6. So let's go with this. Black has to respond, white goes here, black will probably go to d1 to keep the game going on, and white, I could then consider playing. So if I were to do nothing to the top, black would play here, and white grabs an edge, and black runs out of move. White goes to a6, and this mini diagonal control is controlled by me. So black would probably have to be forced to play this x square to actually continue the game, perhaps. Okay, so black has played the x square, so definitely it's a good move to keep the game going on for sure. Right now I need to think of what's the best way to actually break the diagonal, so this is very challenging. This would definitely be way too loud because I flipped basically 6 discs in 3 different directions. That's probably not what I want to do. b3 doesn't make sense because I flipped the entire plane of this to the top and it's entirely exposed. So out of these 3 moves, perhaps b4 would be the top choice. Another option would be to play to the top. This is a clean move, perhaps. Not too sure if that makes sense. And of course, white would also be able to consider e1 over here for the cut. White, black, white. And we get some corner access, but I don't really benefit because I don't really have access to this square, so it is a bit problematic. White, black, that would be a problem for me to jump into the center as well. So it does seem like I have to resolve the top before I actually think of going to the left. Because it would be too badly poisoning the top after I establish some disc to the left. So I guess it would then make sense to actually feed off this to the top. So usually if you're choosing between 2 regions, you want to play the move towards the side that is more likely removable, and then you would then be able to unpoison the other region if they're self-obstructing. But if you play to the one that is not easily removable, you end up sort of tripping yourself up. So let's go to the top with that in mind. And probably black will just grab the edge over here. We would then consider probably taking this move or taking this move first, which he would probably take this unbalanced edge, and we would then be able to follow up since this disc is removed. If we were to play here, black would probably play around to C3, B3 instead, and probably not remove the B4 this, which would then obstruct my future route to D2 actually. So maybe black, white here, if that makes sense. So let's go for that move, and after black has removed that, then I would then consider this. Or alternatively, we could actually try to play a poisoning move and just confuse the game by playing a floating X square over here. So white, black, white may not be too favorable as well. Let's go with that floating X square and just try to play that out. Probably black would actually follow up with this move, perhaps, or this move. So now I am feeling a little bit pressured over here. Yep. Black has gone for this to retain one more move, so that's a great move. I'll go with the inner move, controlling this mini diagonal, and the future move towards A3 perhaps. Try and capture those moves. Hopefully, so this is somewhat of a gamble. I definitely need to try to allow him to take the corner and attack the edge. Okay, so right now black has played a fairly loud move that might actually open up opportunities for me. I'll take the corner, and he'll take either one of these pockets, and I'll just take the other one for parity. He's probably going to take this, since this forms a 4-disc wedge instead of just feed off this. So if he goes in here, I will jump in for the exchange in parity. He could potentially then jump into G7 for parity. Okay, so he didn't jump into G7 for parity, so I'll go ahead and grab that for parity in this area to the bottom right. Okay, so right now parity might be sealed because the bottom right is a two square region, and the top right as well as the 2 square region. Now the top left is all 6, so being white is actually quite advantage in this position at least. So let's go ahead to play this extension to the diagonal. So once this board position is actually occupied, okay, you will then be able to play this diagonal across, and there is no turning over of this perhaps. And over here, no matter where he plays, I could then follow, basically splitting this into a 2 square region each, and wherever black plays, I will just follow to the same region. Okay, so the opponent seems to be running out of time over here. Okay. Okay, so this is going to be round 6, the final round of Team Brazil and Team Singapore. So playing black right now against diagonal opening. So I'll play perhaps the usual cow variation for simplicity. And he will go on to actually play to the perhaps Tanida cut. So let's go ahead with a slight variation perhaps to the bat opening. Just a diagonal chip across, more like a head and tail. And then let's go for the cross back or the centralizing move. Either one is fine perhaps, or just go for this. I think let's go for the cross back move. Just regroup those discs. Okay, so now the opponent has regrouped to the center. And let's jump in for the center cut, just maintaining that center shape. The next moves for white would actually be here or here. So It's a bit difficult for me right now. We could just break the shape here, or we could just aim for this square by playing this move. Let's go for this disc to target this particular square. So right now he's blocked it, so that's a very good play by him. So, okay, right now he's occupying the center. It's a bit difficult for me to actually play the follow-up. So probably D2 or E2 could be possible options. And alternatively, some quiet moves to the bottom as well. So I think this does look quite a bad shape for me at the moment. Yeah, so it is a bit difficult. Let's just play a quiet move, perhaps. Just over here, even though it flips two discs in two different directions. You just try to secure this disc to gain access to cut into the center, perhaps. Okay, so he's poisoned that move that we're looking at, so it is becoming fairly difficult. So let's just continue over here to regroup. And perhaps white would then grab the edge over here, or actually just grab a simple center cut. So that's good. Okay, let's just cut down to the center, grabbing this disc, targeting this square in the future. So right now, I believe I'm in a losing position for sure. It's becoming very difficult to find moves that are good to play. And you can see he has so many quiet moves and nice moves to play. So if I were to play here at G6, he would actually just take H5 and control this mini diagonal across. I would then have to try to target the access to H6 to try to feed off that unbalanced edge. Alternatively, I could just play this and just create some discs along this mini diagonal. I think I'll go ahead with this and allow him to form up that shape perhaps so that it becomes an easier target. Okay, so he doesn't take it, probably because he doesn't want to form an unbalanced edge. So typically when I initiate an edge, and if the opponent doesn't take it, I should probably take it just for tempo's sake. Let's go ahead and take it, perhaps. Okay, so he's played to the quiet move. Yes, that is probably within expectations. And usually, probably an extended shape of a move, probably the tail end of it would be a good move to think about. A quiet move, center cut, and I grab this particular disc to D3 to obtain access to B5. Okay, so white right now has jumped into the center and basically probably open up one potential quiet move for black over here, so I could consider actually going to B6 right now. Yep, let's go ahead with B6 over here. And if white does cut out over here, I could then jump over here to C8. And if white goes for C7, I could just go in. Okay, white goes to the top. These discs are removed, so one potential option is to just play to this pocket here. With the danger that he might actually go here and here for consecutive moves. So probably want to reach out to the edge perhaps and create one disc along this mini diagonal to prevent that from happening. But if I were to take this edge, it would obstruct these moves in the future. So it does seem like a difficult choice at the moment. Okay, so let's go ahead with black here first. Since I capture this particular disc to D4, I can actually retain some access down to D7 if he were to choose to play C7. So let's go ahead with that somewhat quiet move perhaps. And he does take any discs along this column F, and I would then be able to jump in to E1 to poison the F1 move. Okay, so white has played that move down to C7, which is fairly valid. If I don't have access to this square, white would then be able to play H5 in the future, feed off H7, and get this access and jump in for consecutive moves. But since right now I have that excess, I will probably go ahead and take it for now, and just waiting for white to create any excess along the F column. So I believe in the opening and early mid game I was actually losing and in quite a bad position. Probably just a little bit lucky in terms of how the shape has been played out right now. Okay, so right now white has played to the left, running a little short on time. We'll play probably an extreme C square over here. May work, or we could just feed off this. Let's just grab this and feed off the unbalanced edge perhaps. Still waiting for white to actually occupy some disc along the F column so that E1 can be played. Okay, so since he's not playing that for the moment, perhaps we could just jump into B3, which is fairly poisoning of the response to C2. So the situation does still seem a little difficult. White, white will actually go to G1. It's actually a great move over here to try to control the board. So, okay, let's play perhaps this move to perhaps sort of beg a response for white to actually play to F1 and potentially flip some discs along this diagonal so that this opens up a move for me to C2. So that is potentially one sequence. Okay, so white has played a nice quiet move to the bottom. So that's a bit surprising that he didn't respond that way, but probably because he doesn't want to give up this move. So he's going to go for consecutive moves over here. So let's just speed off and still waiting for white to jump in over here. And if white does choose to grab the unbalanced edge, it could actually be attacked in the future. Perhaps white, black, black, white, black, potentially. Let's go with white just jumping, black just jumping in over here for that easy cutback move. Just taking a quick quiet move, bearing in mind that I only have 34 seconds left. So this might be a little tough for me to actually close out. It's a bit difficult. Let's try this to grab the unbalanced edge first and see what white plays. So you grab the top unbalanced edge, which is actually quite risky for me right now because, okay, let's grab this to control this mini diagonal. Just running out of time here perhaps. And white is expected to grab that corner. And we would then go for this diagonal cut over here perhaps. Or we could just go for this actually and just grab this corner. Let's grab this corner and try to go for this edge. Okay, let's grab this move then. Since he didn't take it, we'll probably try to take it. Let's grab this as a quick response for parity. And I think I got away lucky because I actually somehow captured parity by taking away this and controlling this line. So that was quite a narrow escape for me. Just really lucky. Thank you for the game, raulseixas. So that was really lucky, I guess. So that basically concludes Team Brazil against Team Singapore. Hey, so after a total of 36 games and a total of 6 rounds of gameplay between Team Brazil and Team Singapore, we actually arrive at this final results. So as you can see, the team score would be 4.5 to 31.5, and the discount is 814 to 1,490. You have that round scores breakdown in terms of the results, as well as the individual player ranking that is sorted by points and discs. So a very good experience for both teams, perhaps, in terms of the overall team match. At least that is the feedback that I received from them individually. And of course, the individual top three, congratulations to those players. And yep, basically, both teams have expressed to look forward to the next team match where possible. So thank you very much for watching this video, and I hope you enjoyed this video.